What is up, guys? Today I'm bringing you a Metalfoe Yang Zing deck profile.
Don't lose your way, your mind, we have to be as one.
Metalfoe Yang Zings are actually the most fun deck I've actually built in a little long time, and it's really fun. Remember that this is a first draft. This isn't a final list because obviously we're going to get more cards in Invasion of Venom, and this list is going to change again. So first off, we have 3 copies of Metalfoe Silvered. So now all the Yang Zing, all the Metalfoes have the same pendulum effect. They're all vanillas, much like Ignites. But their effect is once per turn, you can target one of their face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, set one Metalfoe spell or trap card straight from your deck. So it's very similar to Sky Iris. And it's sort of like I compare it. It's like a hybrid between Ignites and Fire Fist. So basically, they'll do a lot of the same thing. But Silvered is important because it's level 3 and it's a scale 1, and it's good for synchro plays. Next up, we have 3 copies of Metalfoe's Steel Ren. Steel Ren is really obviously you play 3 because you want to. It's on your 8 scales. But the main reason it's important is it's good for your Nirvana High Paladin plays, and that's one of the and your Metaphys Horus plays. This card is integral to some of those plays, so that's why you play it. Next up for the last couple Metalfoes, only play 2 Gold Rivers and 1 Volflame. Gold River is actually really good because it's synchro fodder, and Volflame is like just a big beater. But basically, these 3 cards are kind of like the last few. Gold River is really important because you can make Metaphys Horus with it, and Jiaotu, and Volflame is just good because it's like a 1-card boxier or level 8 with your Chaiwen. Now, of course, for the main engine of the deck, for the Yang Zings, we have 3 copies of Jiaotu. This card is absolutely integral to your deck's combos. Basically, if you open 3 Yang Zing cards and a Metalfoe, you can go ahead and pop the Yang Zing card and then special summon this from the deck and then go off from there. And you're going to be special summoning that copy a lot with the way this deck plays. Next up, we have 3 copies of Chaiwen. I know a lot of Yang Zing players only like 2, but I kind of like having 3 because a lot of times you just want to maximize those chances you open with all your Yang Zing combo pieces. And Chaiwen's obviously really good because you can special summon it from Jiaotu and it can fulfill either requirement, which is really nice. Next up, we have 3 copies of Zifranu, Secret of the Yang Zing. It might seem a little much to play this card at 3, but you play it at 3 for the same reason you play 3 Chaiwens. Plus, whenever it is Pendulum summoned or destroyed and sent to the extra deck while it's on the field as a monster, you can actually search your deck for any Yang Zing or Zephyrus spell or traps. It's really important. It searches out your counter trap, it searches out your Yang Zing pass and your creation, so it's really important. Then you have 3 copies of Suwani. Suwani is probably one of the best ones because it buffs your monsters by 500 attack. You'll find you can make this with a lot of different synchros and pump them up to a lot of attack points. Next up, we have 3 copies of Beyond. Being able to make your monster immune to battle is really good because a lot of your monsters don't have the biggest attack points. Boxy is only about 2300. And that really helps with this deck. Deck's being able to make them immune to battle is really nice. Then we have 3 Bixies and then 1 Tauti for the last 3 Yang Zings. Bixie is probably going to be cut down to 2, and Tauti is going to be cut down to 1, down out of the deck for maybe a plow and some painful decisions. The only reason painful decisions aren't in this list is because I didn't feel the need to spend like $30 or whatever on them when they're about to get reprinted. And that's all the monster lineup. For the spells, we have 1 copy of Metalfoe's Fusion. I keep going back between 1 and 2, but 1 is kind of a good number because you don't really need more than 1 because you can keep just setting it back over and over again. And definitely once we get the new Fusion in Invasion of Venom, Mithril, I believe it's his name, you won't really need more than 1 because you can keep not only can you cycle this back, you'll be able to cycle all your Metalfoe spells and traps back as well. Then for probably one of the more interesting texts in the deck, we have 2 copies of Storm. So if you don't know what Storm does, it's basically sort of like a pseudo Wavering Eyes. So it says it destroys all spells and traps you control, then destroys as many spells and traps your opponent controls as possible, up to the number of all your own cards you control. So what makes this card absolutely devastating to your opponent is what does this deck lose to more than anything else is back row. So a lot of times if you have multiple combinations set, you can simply set your spells and traps and then storm away all your opponents. And the other nice thing is, it's much like with Cleforts and their sacrifice. This also triggers your combinations as well, so it's really nice. Then for the last 3 spells, we'll play 3 copies of Yang Zing Path. You can get away with 2, but 3, I play 3 just because I want to see it as early as possible. It is searchable via Zifranu, so it's not that much. But I find this card is absolutely critical to the deck because of how much you go through Boxy. Is Boxia is like your Force Tricks. If you Raid Raptor players out there, you will summon it 4 or 5 times in a lot of duels. And now for the traps, we play 1 copy of Yang Zing Creation. I'm only play 1, and I might be honestly cut it from the deck entirely in the future because it's just an MST magnet. It gets MST'd or Twin Twistered every time I have it set. My opponent seems to snipe it out. But it is another name for your Jiaotu, so that's really nice. Then we have the 1 copy of Zephyr Divine Strike. So you don't know what this card does. It says when a spell or trap or monster effect is activated, banish 1 face-up Zephyr card monster in your extra deck, negate the activation if you do destroy it. A lot of times, by the end of the combo, you'll have multiple copies of Zephyranu in your extra deck, so it's pretty much costless in a lot of ways. So this will obviously be cut when we get 9 branches in the next set. Then for the last couple traps, we have 2 copies of Metalfoe's Counter. This is the one I'm a little iffy on. Like, it's good, but this is better than the more pure Metalfoe variants. But in theory, it's pretty good because you can special summon Metalfoes whenever you pop one of your Yang Zings. And it gives you just more floatability, which is nice. And of course, wouldn't be a Metalfoe Yang Zing list without 2 copies of Metalfoe's Combination. Combination is really good because basically what you do is when you set this from your deck, then pop it with your Boxia, and you can search out whatever other scale you're missing. Also, it has that extra effect when you fusion summon with using a Metalfoe, but you don't really ever use that in this particular deck. Next up, of course, for the extra deck, we have the 1 copy of Nirvana High Paladin. This deck summons this card with, pretty much the greatest of ease. So all you need to summon, so if you don't know how this card is actually summoned, it can be summoned, for its Synchro Summon, you can treat 1 summon Pendulum monster you control as a tuner. So say you can make this with, say, like a Yazi and a Pendulum Summon Silvered, or a Boxia and a Pendulum Summon Steel Run. So when you do actually meet that condition, it's a demock. It allows you to cycle any card back from your graveyard, and that's important because you can cycle back monsters as well as spells or traps. And the other thing is that when it runs over monster by battle, you have your opponent's life points, and then it places itself in the Pendulum scale when it bites the dust. This card is absolutely amazing, and you will find yourself making this because this is the biggest monster you can make in the extra deck, and it wins games on its own. Being able to have your opponent's life points is always good. Then we have 3 copies, of course, it's a Metalfoe, it's Yang Zings. You play 3 copies of Boxia. Boxia, this card is absolutely amazing in this deck. It is the most important combo piece. Whenever it's Synchro Summoned, it Synchro Summons, it will spin cards your opponent controls up to the number of Yang Zing cards used for the Synchro Summon. Typically that would be 2, but you can get as many as 3. And the other thing about this is the main thing you care about in this deck is the second effect. So you can target any card you control, that's key, it doesn't have to be face up, and destroy it, and then target a special summon level 4 lower monster and special summon it from your graveyard. So this allows you to keep trigger your Yang Zing effects and trigger your Metalfoe spells and traps, and then get resources back from your graveyard. More often than not, you're going to summon 3 or 4. If you go first with this deck and get your combo off, you're going to summon 3 of these in a turn. Easy. Next up, for the only level 7 I play is 1 copy of Yazi Evil the Yang Zing. I love this card is good, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the level 7 Synchro Pool doesn't do as much as this deck as it could. I don't play Clearwing, I don't play, Black Rose and those cards. I feel like Yazi is just the better option because it eats a Scrap Dragon, you can pop it, and it can't be targeted. And a lot of decks do still fold when this card hits the field. This is the only level 7 I play. We have the 1 copy of Chao Feng. I know a lot of Metalfoe Yang Zing players aren't playing this card, but it's amazing. Because it can turn off monster effects. So basically, if you go into game 2 and you know what you're playing against, you just make this, and with the right optical materials, you'll win the game. And on top of that, if they do destroy it by a card effect, it floats into a tuner. And this card is also really good in the mirror match because when your opponent pops one of their Yang Zing monsters to set a Metalfoe spell or trap, you get to special summon a monster that has that same attribute once per turn. So that's also really good. Is that it's not only is it good it's also good in the mirror matches and whenever if your opponent's playing a more pure Metalfoe variant. Now for some of the extra synchros, we have 1 copy of High Speed Roid Chanbara. This card is really good because you can attack twice with it, and it gains 200 attack each time. So if you make this with a Suwani and a Suwani, it'll attack 20 and go up to 27, and attack again for 29. But this will probably be the card that gets cut when Ding Long does come out, but it is really good. Then for the 6s, I have 1 copy of Metaphys Horus. I love this card to pieces. If you don't know what this does, whenever it's synchro summon, you can activate effects depending on the type, the non-tutor monsters you use for synchro summon. Typically, you're going to make it with Metalfoe's monsters, and it has an effect when it's used with a normal monster that makes it unaffected by card effects. It has an effect monster effect and negates one face-up card in the field. And the third effect, which is the important one, is your opponent chooses one monster they control and gives it to control to you, but it cannot attack this turn. So what I love about this card is that it not only it breaks, it doesn't target and it doesn't target and it doesn't affect the monster. So if this deck does have trouble getting over monsters that are unaffected by card effects such as Ultimate Falcon. And the other thing is that the way the card works and how it manages chain links is if they try to Valor it, you can just set the Snatch Steal effect to chain link to lowest chain link. That way they can't negate it. This card is absolutely amazing, and it bypasses and it fixes a lot of the annoying cards that this deck has trouble getting over. Then we have one copy of Stardust Charge Warrior. This is kind of like another card that might be cut in the future, but I love this card because it allows me to advance my game state and draw, and then go for my Crystal Wing play, which is really good. Then, of course, for the 8s, we have the one Ignister. Ignister is, if you can go into it, you run it. The card is being able to, it dominates the Pendulum Mirror match, and it gets over Cosmos ships, which is Cosmos are one of those deck's worst matchups. Then we have the one copy of Crystal Wing. It might seem a little bit, sacrilege or so to be playing this without Ultimaya, but you can easily go into this with either Yazi or Chaiwen, or Stardust Charge Warrior and Jiaotu, which is not an unreasonable thing to do. But Crystal Wing does win games on its own, especially against Cosmos. Then we have one copy of Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. This might seem like an odd choice considering I'm not playing Abyss in this extra deck, but I found a lot of times if I'm able to spin my opponent's entire field, rather than making the third Boxia, what I'll do is I'll go into this and then attack with the two Boxias and then summon Scarlight instead of the third one, and then Scarlight will finish off the game because typically when you attack direct, it'll leave your opponent 400. So Scarlight, you can actually activate it main phase 2 and burn your opponent for game. Then we have the one copy of Void Ogre Dragon. This is how you create the first turn locks with Harbinger and the counter trap. And this, you lock your opponent out of spells is always really good, and the card is easy to go into. Then for the only XC we play, and of course, speaking of Devil, we have the one copy of number 38, Hope Harbinger, Dragon Titanic Galaxy. This card, it wins games on its own, and it's, probably one of the best cards you can go into in the game right now. And the only Metalfoe Fusion I play is one copy of Orichalc. Orichalc is really good for the reason that it does double piercing, and I find that it dominates in the mirror match. So a lot of times, I'll notice Metalfoe Yang Zing players will leave their monsters sitting in defense mode, and this thing does double piercing damage. All your Metalfoe monsters, while this is out, do double piercing damage. That is absolutely incredible, and this card is also level 8, so you can make Titanic Galaxy with it. So in the comment section down below, let me know what you guys think of this deck profile. What should I change? One of the things I did think about is definitely finding room for, as I said, painful decisions, finding room for Palau, and of course, changes in the future. Let me know down in the comment section down below. As always, thank you guys for watching. It's Storm, signing out.